Hey guys, Magnus Robert here, bringing you another video, and of course we have done Homer and Lisa, so it's Bart's turn. So today we're going to be ranking all of Bart's costumes from worst to best. So yeah, Lisa and Homer's was quite big. I'm hoping this video is quite short. Obviously, took me half an hour to go through their costumes because they obviously had a lot, where Bart doesn't have as many, which is a good thing. After this, we'll of course be doing Marge, and then I'm going to finish it off with Maggie, and that will finish the kind of Simpsons main family. And then I'll go on to some of the requests that people kind of requested, or we'll go through all the kind of recurring character costumes. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So let's start off with the worst costume for Bart. Daredevil Bart. Without any kind of hesitation, I think this is the worst costume that has been added for Bart. The reason why is obviously it's got one animation, which is the skateboard trick, which is very similar to his main skateboarding animation. Obviously, it's a little bit different, but it kind of like I would say it's a meh animation as it is. So to have like only one animation and it's kind of meh is not particularly very great. Also, the price of this thing, it of course came with the Springfield Gorge, and that was 250 donuts. So you get the Springfield Gorge, which is a decoration, and you get Daredevil Bart for 250 donuts. It's way overpriced. Now, recently, in recent years, it of course went down to 60 donuts in the Thanksgiving Gone to the Birds event, and also it was added to the yearbook, obviously, so that means it went down to 30 donuts. But regardless, it was ridiculously priced for some years, so I think this is a factor in its place, its placement as the worst. Now, I also think that this honestly could have possibly been a decoration, and so not a decoration, an animation for Bart's costume. I don't know if it really was entirely justified to be its own unique costume. I think in some sense you could argue that this could have been a animation. They could have just given us the skateboard tricks animation for Bart, and then we wouldn't have needed a whole Daredevil Bart. I also think that the Springfield Gorge would have been fine to be added with, what's his name? The stuntman, because he's a stuntman. It kind of makes sense. I feel like they could justify it somewhat. So yeah, that's my opinion on Daredevil Bart, the worst costume in the game, or at least the worst costume for Bart. Elf Bart is next. So of course we obviously had Elf Lisa as well, so this came in a bundle for 100 donuts, as you guys probably know if you watched the last video, and it has pretty much one of the same animations as Lisa, which is the Spread the Holiday Cheer. It's practically the same animation, and it also includes, well, it is the same animation because it includes Elf Lisa. And it also has the Search for Santa Claus animation, which isn't particularly that great either. I think that, honestly, the two animations for this costume aren't particularly that great. Also, I just don't think it's that cool looking. I mean, it's just Bart in an elf costume. It's kind of a standard Christmas costume. Not really much for me. I think it's got some cool enough things in it, but yeah, 100 donuts. I think it's a tiny bit overpriced. I talked about that price a little bit, but it's not that overpriced. It's 100 donuts. I guess maybe 60 for a decent costume, I'd say. But I wouldn't say this was a particularly decent costume, so I would say the price is somewhat fair, but I still think it's kind of a bit overpriced for what the costume is. Yeah, not a fan of the animations too much, not a fan of too much of the look of the costume, so that's why it's kind of low. Goblin Bar is next. So of course this was the Clash of Crap costume, as we call it. Now this costume was free in the event, however it's never been added ever again. Like literally the only event you could have got this in is the Clash of Crap. So if you weren't around for this and you've got this costume, you must have hacked, because yeah, this costume, or at least according to the wiki, it's never been re-added, which is very weird. I thought it would have been added in the Game of Games, but so we got two animations. It's got Trek for Traps, and it's got Loot. They're not particularly great animations. It literally is just Bart with a green face paint on and a little kind of, with no shirt practically and some weird shorts. That's practically what this costume is. I don't know. I just think it could have been it's not particularly cool looking. It doesn't scream iconic. It's not from any episode, which I can recall anyway. It might be from an episode, I just can't recall what episode it's from, so I don't think that's a particularly great thing for a costume. Obviously that's just my opinion and my memory, but still, this is my list. So, yeah, I just think the two animations aren't great. Like I said, not particularly very cool looking. So yeah, although it is free, so it kind of has a little. It's a little bit better than the Elf Bart in that respect. So yeah. Wizard Bart is next. Yeah, I mean, the wizard costumes are a bit bland, let's be honest. I think, although yes, it was free, which is always kind of cool, I just find these costumes so bland and so uninteresting to me. I mean, they're easily ones I forget about very quickly. Obviously, we have Exploit Powers, which is not a terrible animation, and it has Magically Pants Skinner, which is kind of funny, I guess, but which of course includes Skinner. I mean, that one's quite good. I quite like that one, but the Exploit Powers, I mean, yeah, I'd say it's got two decent animations, which I guess is a push above the other two costumes, but I think just the look of it is very bland. It's not particularly interesting. Yeah, I'm just not a massive fan of these wizard costumes. I mean, they're cool, I guess, to complete the category, but that's pretty much it. Obviously, like I said, it was free when it was originally added. Recently, though, it kind of came 150 with, obviously, in a bundle. And then it went down to 15 in Thanksgiving 2016, which isn't a terrible price. And then it went back up to 45 donuts in the most recent Halloween event. Yeah, so yeah, not great, but at least it's fairly reasonably priced, and at least it's got two decent animations. I just don't think the costume itself looks particularly cool. Kamp Bart is next. I think that name is, but Kamp Bart, I should say, with a K, not a C. Yeah, so of course this is a premium costume. This was Bart's very first costume, so it's kind of funny how it's quite low on this list, but the main reason why it's very low is because I think there was some justification for it being an animation. Now, I think a costume is fine and all, but originally, I don't know, I think you could argue that this could be just a few animations at the most, because it doesn't look particularly unique. I mean, it's cool enough though. There is some, like, I think Bart looks pretty badass, I guess, somewhat in the costume. He looks pretty cool, but there's just some factors. For example, the price. Originally it was 200 donuts, which is really overpriced, ridiculously overpriced. Obviously it's the same scenario, similar scenario with the Daredevil Bart. Then it was re-added though for 80 donuts, then it went down to 20 donuts, then it went down to a all-American auction token thing, so you could actually get it for free if you got the right thing. Then it went down to 50 donuts in the Flanders Family Reunion. It was actually free in Simpsons Babies, which is kind of cool. And then it obviously went to the yearbook as well, so it would have been 30 donuts. So it's actually had a bunch of reprices, which in some respect you could kind of say, oh, that's kind of cool. The fact it was free for a bit, I also think it is a good point, and I think that should be kind of commended, because I do like it when premium stuff goes free for certain events. You know, it actually gives the players who don't want to spend money the chance to get some kind of exclusive stuff just for partaking in events. I like that, and so in some respect that's why this costume is higher than I probably initially would have put it. It also does have free animations, which I think is a fairly good thing too. Go on a Rampage, which is a pretty cool animation. Obviously Roast Marshmallows is kind of meh, but and then it has what was the other one? Burn Krusty Effigy, which is like sort of meh. I mean, it's okay. Yeah, so it's got some cool things in it. Don't get me wrong, it's not the worst costume in the game, but I think the price and the fact that for me at least, the price is a big thing, and also the fact I just don't think it's particularly that great. It doesn't look that cool, although I think Bart looks pretty badass in the costume. I just think compared to others, it's just not up there for me. So yeah, that's Kamp Bart on this list. Casino Boss Bar is the next costume. So this, I like this in a lot of ways. It's got Make It Rain, which is a cool animation, and the Promote Casino in Style, which are two really awesome animations. It obviously has, it obviously was originally 90 donuts in the Burns Casino event. It was re-added in the Springfield Jobs event for 60 donuts, and then it came back in the All-American auction for 20 donuts, which is a fair price, I think. So for 90 donuts, obviously it came with the Bart Casino skin for the treehouse. I would say, I mean, at a stretch, it's a fair enough price. I mean, 60 donuts for a skin is like my limit. But then obviously you have 30 I would say maybe 30 donuts is a fair price for a skin for a building. I don't know, but yeah, I think it may have been 80. Maybe if it was 80 donuts, it would have been more reasonable. Two cool animations, kind of obviously a reasonable enough price, and I think it looks okay. He looks pretty dapper in that kind of costume, so yeah, I don't think it's a terrible costume. That is the Casino Boss Bart. Jockey Bar is next. So yeah, I mean, this one is obviously from an episode that a lot of people hate, so it's kind of funny. I like to mention the episodes sometimes, but I'm not judging this based on the episodes. I don't think that's really fair. But the costume itself, I like. I mean, I think it's cool. Bart looks very sophisticated in it, and yeah, it's kind of your standard sporty Simpson costume. But I think it has some cool tasks. The ride around town, obviously that includes Furious D. I like that one. It looks cool, and it's fun for the episode. And then whip around town is pretty awesome too. Him just kind of whipping. Yeah, I don't think it's a terrible costume. It's got 2 animations, which is standard, and yeah, plenty of kind of other little tasks as well. I actually really like the questline for this costume too. Of course, it was originally added in the Tap Ball event, and it did cost 100 donuts, but it did come with Furious D, so you're getting a costume and a character for 100 donuts. I don't think that's a terrible price. It's a cool costume, and you're getting a cool character. I think Furious D is a pretty awesome character as far as animals go. Plus, he's got full tasks and everything, which is pretty cool. So I think the price was fairly reasonable. And then it went down to 75 donuts in the Springfield game and in the football 2017 update. Obviously, that was through the mystery box, but yeah, it went down in price technically. So yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty standard. It's reasonably priced. Although yes, it's a premium costume. It has some cool animations, and it's pretty. I guess you could argue that this is an iconic costume, just maybe not for the right reasons, but in some sense it kind of is rememberable at least. So yeah, Jockey Bar. Clockwork Bar. This is of course number 9. I was a little iffy on this one. I wasn't sure where to put it at first, but I recently watched the episode that it's from, and I kind of like it actually. I think he looks really cool. I like, obviously, it's a parody costume, but I think it's very awesome in some sense. Obviously, we have the look for ultra pranking animation, which isn't too great, but the talk with annoying accent, obviously he kind of goes from homes to homes. I like those kind of tasks, so I think that one's pretty cool. Yeah, not I guess an amazing costume, but obviously, I don't know, there's something about it. I like it, so there it is. I think it looks pretty cool too. I think it also fits in with the Clockwork Mo one we've got. I kind of really wish that they had a bunch of the other Clockwork costumes, because it could be kind of cool to have a few of them. Obviously, this was originally free. It was an Act 2 prize in the Treehouse of Horror 2015. It has never been re-added, which is very unfortunate. But so I guess in some sense that's the reason why it's not any higher. But yeah, I think it's got some cool things for it. So yeah, that's just my opinions, I guess. So yeah, Clockwork Bar. Stretch Dude. Spring King, please. I've put him fair on the list. This is a fair placing on the list. So, obviously, with Clobber Girl, I placed her very high because I like the Clobber Girl costumes. And I've said that I really like the superhero costumes. They're some of my favourite costumes. And that is true, I'll be honest. I mean, that's just my opinion. But I can understand the argument to why Stretch Dude isn't great. Obviously, the animation is a little dodgy for him. Now, in the past, I've talked about certain characters with really weird-looking animations. One of them being Lucille, the babysitter, the evil babysitter. Her, the way she walks around town looks so friggin' weird. I really don't it does look really off. And looking at Stretch Dude, I decided to look him walk around my town myself, and I can agree, it looks really silly. So I placed him a few places down just for that reason. But I still don't think it's a terrible costume. He was originally free, obviously in the Superheroes 2 event. You got him in the prize track. And then he's got 2 pretty cool animations. Check for Powers, which is kind of cool. He's got his big hands kind of out. And the bum wiggle, or the butt wiggle, I should say. The butt wiggle, which is hilarious. I remember that from the episode. Part of the reason why is I love the episode that this is from, the kind of the Treehouse of Horrors. That whole Treehouse of Horror I really love. I love the kind of Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl little segment. So, I don't know, I've got a soft spot for Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl. I like the costumes. But I can understand why the animation is a little iffy for him. But I think he's got 2 solid animations. And I think he, if he didn't look if the animation wasn't a bit weird, I think he would have looked fine. So, I mean, there you have it. That's where I'm placing Stretch Dude, alright? Spring King. So yeah. General Splattin. So I originally wanted to put this a little bit lower, but really looking at it, I think this costume is okay, you know. I haven't still watched the episode. I really do need to watch the actual episode that he comes in. I've watched a part of it anyway, but I need to watch it in full. I kind of skimmed through it. I always tend to skim through episodes where like the event is based on. I never really watch them properly, but I'm trying to watch all the Simpsons in order at the minute. So from I think I'm on season 25 or 6. So I'm nearly there. I will get to this episode and watch it in its full eventually. But I like this costume. I think it's got some cool animations. The Wreck Noobs and the team fight, I think is cool. Obviously, the team fight includes all the Smell You Later, which is kind of awesome too. I do like it when costumes interact with each other or when characters interact with each other. So I think it's got one really cool animation because that, to me, is actually a really good thing. It's one thing I really wish the wrestling update had because it kind of would have redeemed it somewhat. Wreck Noobs, obviously, that one's okay too. I just wasn't a massive fan of the update, I guess, so that was why I initially kind of thought less of this costume, but I will admit it looks cool as hell. I mean, Bart looks awesome in this. He's much bigger, he obviously has the beard, he has the thing, and I'm really glad that they made this a costume and not a separate character, because that would have really kind of spoiled this being a really cool costume. So yeah, General Splattin, obviously it's free, it's never been re-added, but to be fair, obviously the Game of Games was fairly recent, so you can't really expect it to be re-added anytime soon. Yeah, so it's a free costume, it's got 2 cool animations, so that's why it's this far up the list. I think it deserves this place. Rappin Bar. Okay, I like this costume. I think this costume's cool. Rappin Bar. Obviously, this was added in the Homerpalooza event. It's got 2 animations. Nail hit song? Yeah, Nail hit song in 28 tries, which on the bench. That one's okay. And rap, it's just a standard kind of rap, and that's obviously on the hip hop stage. That one's pretty cool too. I like the stages sometimes. I do like it when they have the stages. And then remember when they initially added that first stage that you get with Agnes Skinner. That one was kind of cool, and I do like their little stage animations. They look pretty awesome. It kind of makes the town feel more alive in some sense. So yeah, I like this costume. I think Bart looks kind of cool in it. Obviously he's got the hoodie. It's almost like a stereotype in some sense that rappers are these kind of like hoodie wearing, jeans low down, kind of, even his stance. There's something about it, it's just kind of typical almost. I think it's a fine costume. It was free, which is good. It's got 2 cool animations, which is good. Yeah, it's a standard costume. I also like the questline for this costume too. I had to read through it, but yeah, I would recommend reading through it again. It's a pretty decent questline. I remember it from the episode as well. I've recently watched that episode. I watched it quite a while ago, but yeah, I watched that episode. It was fairly good, and yeah, I think this was definitely justification for a costume, and it fit right into the event, and it kind of rounded it off as well. So yeah, I like this costume a lot. Rappin Bar. General Bar. I wanted to place this as high as I possibly could, but I had to be somewhat, I guess, I had to be careful, because in some sense I can get why people would kind of lower this a lot, because the costume itself is not particularly unique looking. It's Bart in his standard clothes with a pair of sunglasses on and a hat, and I might get shit for this, but I think it still looks cool as hell. I think it's an improvement on Bart, and I think this honestly had full. I think this is somewhat justified as a costume. Now, I can understand why people would argue that this should be an animation. I can get that, but there's something about it. The rally the troops, I love that, and of course the conduct commands raid was 2 really cool animations. Also, this is just. I'm going to say it, it's iconic. It's a real iconic thing. Of course, this comes from the Bart the General episode, which is a very, very old episode. I think season 1? I think it is, isn't it? I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's season 1. It's an episode I really love. It's an episode I remember very much so. It's kind of the very first kind of Nelson episode here. It is season 1. It's season 1, episode 5. So you're literally the 5th episode. So it is iconic, and I think that's the reason why I've placed it very high. I like the 2 animations as well. It was a free prize. It was in Bart Royale, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's got everything that I want in a costume. It reminds me of a great episode. It has cool animations from the episode, and it also is, it's free, which is a good thing too. But don't get me wrong, I think donut costumes can be still high up on lists, as you'll see in a bit. But that is Bart the General. or General Bart, I should say. Yeah. The Kid with No Name. I initially wasn't a massive fan of this costume, and I can still see why some people wouldn't be that good, kind of that cool with it. Of course, this is a Wild West costume. It's never been re-added with, which is a little unfortunate because I do think it's a cool costume in its own right. I still remember this costume when I was doing this list. The first one I thought of is because I was trying to think like which costumes am I missing, which costumes aren't going to be at the top of my head, and I was like, oh, the Kid with No Name, that's a cool costume. And so I remembered it, which I guess is not particularly a great reason for it being fairly high, but I like the Make Nelson Dance. That one's cool as hell, obviously shooting at his feet. And then you have the demonstrate his skills with the control building, which is kind of cool too. Yeah, I like it. It's a cool little Western costume for Bart. I mean, he looks pretty cool. I think the only thing I would kind of be a little bit critical on is the artwork. It makes him look like he's only got one arm, but that's more just the actual unlock screen. The actual character looks fine in the game. So yeah, that is the Kid with No Name. I think I also love the name of the costume. They didn't just call it Wild West Bart. They called it an actual kind of, Wild West name. I don't know. It's something about it. I really love it. That's why it's number 3. Bartman. Oh boy, very iconic. This is a very iconic kind of superhero costume, and I think in some sense this is why I'm putting this one higher, because I want to put a superhero costume higher anyway in my mind. But this one really deserves it. Now, it was premium, but it was 60 donuts, and it came with, of course, it's like the little Bartman cave, and then it was re-added for 20 donuts. So I think it's a decoration and skin. I think that's a fair enough price. Even for a skin, I'd say that's a fair price, 60 donuts. It's got 3 animations, which is really, really awesome. Test gadgets, which is kind of cool. Then it has Train for Future Conflict and Go on Patrol. All pretty decent animations for this costume. It's iconic in many ways. The kind of Bartman's alter ego is quite, it's out there. It's fairly famous to the Simpsons in a lot of sense. Yeah, great animations, really cool looking. I think Bart looks pretty cool in it. Obviously, it's just a simple superhero costume in some sense, but I don't know. It really suits Bart. I like the purple. I like the coloring in it, and I know that's a really weird thing to point out, but there you have it. Cool animations, cool looking, reasonably priced. Definitely deserves the number 2 spot. So yeah, that is Bartman. But anyway, we're going to come to the number 1, and I feel like a lot of people are going to know what it is. But anyway, can we have that little mini drum roll? That's the drum roll. It goes to the Shadow Knight. Okay. I'm eating my words a little bit with this one, because the price. We have to talk about the price. So 200 donuts for a costume and a decoration. That is ridiculously priced. But, and I think in some regards, yeah, it looks cool as hell. It is an awesome looking costume. And I initially was going to put this as number 2, but then I kind of thought into consideration. In the Time Traveling Toaster, it went down to 60, and then in Thanksgiving, it was free if you got the token, and obviously you got the right, if you actually unlocked it, you got it completely for free. And then in 2018 and 2018's Thanksgiving and the All-American Auction in 2019, it went down to 20 donuts. And of course, it's also appeared in many yearbooks for 30 donuts. So it's gone down in price, which is a good thing. Now, the initial kind of price of it is definitely something for consideration. 200 donuts is a lot, but look at it. It's awesome. This is the coolest costume for Bart by far. One of the coolest costumes in the game. It doesn't even look like Bart. You can't even tell it's Bart. I mean, there is definite justification for this being a costume by far, and I love it. And in a lot of ways, I'm really glad that they added the Game of Games costumes as actual costumes and not characters, because I feel like if the Shadow Knight was to be added today, he would be added as a separate character, and it just wouldn't be as good. I think this is a cool as shit costume. And on top of that, it's got 3 awesome animations. Relaxed after a day of questing, which of course is on his little throne. Question his excellence, which is on the throne. And then go on a killing spree, which is just a really, really awesome animation. I don't care. I love this costume. I think it looks cool as hell. It just looks awesome, and I will always think it is the best costume for Bart. I doubt there will be many costumes that will beat this. I can think of nothing that could beat this. Like I said, I was going to put this as number 2. Bartman was originally going to be at number 1, but I just couldn't do it. I was like recording the little bit for it, and I was like, no, screw this. I mean, this costume is the best by far. Yes, the price is definitely a factor, and I think you could definitely argue that initially 200 donuts is way overpriced, and I agree with you. I think that is overpriced, but I think the fact it was re-added at a cheaper price has definitely kind of sold it on the fact that it's number 1 for me. But anyway, that is it for the video. Tell me your thoughts on your favourite costumes for Bart. You can maybe give me a top 3 or rank all of them if you want. And yeah, we'll see you next video where we'll be doing Marge. Hopefully that one will be very short because it's only got 6 costumes. So yeah. See you next video. Goodbye.